Hello, and welcome to our first Accessibility Guys podcast. Our focus is to advocate, educate, and celebrate accessibility in a world that's not always accessible. We are your hosts, Brad Miller and Robb Williamson-Bynoe. Brad and I have known each other for about 15 years and have supported each other's different ventures over that time. More about those ventures will come in other podcasts moving forward. With Brad's challenges with Becker muscular dystrophy and my experience with a neurosurgery procedure a few years back, we have both dealt with the concerns that come with accessibility. Our goal with this podcast is to advocate for those with accessibility challenges and educate those for whom accessibility is not a challenge. We're also going to celebrate individuals who've overcome their accessibility challenges, as well as organizations who contribute to making the world accessible for all. On today's podcast, we'll get to know Brad's story as I ask him a few questions. All right, Brad, you ready?
I guess so.
All right. So you found out you had Becker muscular dystrophy at age 10. What led to your diagnosis?
Well, I was having a lot of unexplained falls and I was trying to keep up with the other kids my age, running, playing soccer. But one thing that was noticed was in school, I couldn't keep up in gym class. There used to be a popular game, which they probably don't play in schools anymore, called dodgeball. And so every time I was the one getting hit, if we had to do those exercises of running from one end to the gym to the other, I was the one always finishing last. And so it was noticed that a lot of stuff was going on, and they're just like, okay, my mom was wondering why I kept falling when we were walking around, why I couldn't run, and why I couldn't, climb stairs. And well, I could climb stairs, but not very fast. Again, climbing trees and fences like other kids would, I just couldn't do it. So she was speaking to someone at church, a lady, and her husband was a doctor, and she suggested that I see him. That led to a blood test, which apparently I had really high levels. I forget what it's called within muscular dystrophy, but this ended up resulting with me going to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, having a muscle biopsy where they took muscle out of my right arm, which left me with some pretty cool stitches, which, was actually pretty impressive for me, because when I got back to school and all my friends saw it, I was like, look at my stitches. This is so cool.
Tough kid.
Yeah. And then within 2 weeks, I think it was, it could have been longer. I don't know if things moved quickly back then, but that's when my parents were told that I had Becker muscular dystrophy, and they were told, worst case scenario, that I'd be in a wheelchair by age 21. So that was the beginning of my journey with Becker muscular dystrophy.
Okay. So you're pretty open and honest about sharing your story. Why do you believe that's so important?
I don't know if it's a generational thing, but, when I was a teenager coming up, I was really drawn towards hip hop music for some reason. And, they like to tell it how it is. And even, I just really got into that because it was a very accepting form of music. And then it was also, you would be able to express yourself freely and say what you want. So honesty to me has always been something that I believe is the best thing to be, because, you don't have to make things up. Life happens. Life's a challenge. And, why not share them? And because there's other people that have gone through it or are going through that same situation. So I want to share it honestly so people, can relate.
Okay. Now, this is one of the questions that we have on here, so I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball. For those of us who aren't familiar with the challenges that you have with muscular dystrophy, what's sort of a day-to-day look like for you?
Yeah, it can be challenging at times. One thing I'm grateful for is that around the time when I had to stop working, I was also diagnosed with, sleep apnea. So my sleep is very important. So thank God I have a sleep apnea machine now. So as long as I get a good night's sleep, I usually wake up still feeling tired. Who really wants to get up when their alarm goes off anyways? But, my wife works, so I force myself out of bed because I take care of breakfast. And, again, I'll make my breakfast at that same time. And then, when I get breakfast done and she's eating it, I usually go in the shower because I like to make sure someone's home when I take a shower, just because there is that risk of a fall. And obviously, if we fall, we definitely want someone there, And after that, I try and take care of things around the house. It was a lot easier before. Like if I have to clean the floors, vacuum, or do some say cleaning of the bathroom, it leaves me pretty worn out the next day. So, I just try and pace myself during the day, though at times I will force myself outside to get some fresh air, walk around. I stay close to the building I live in just because if I fall, I don't want to be too far from home. And so daily is just pretty much like everyone else. I just have to take care of myself. And another issue sometimes, though, one thing I do deal with a lot now is anxiety. Just because, if I fall, if something happens and there's no one to help me, or, because I could easily injure myself. And the other thing is, with Becker muscular dystrophy and other forms of muscular dystrophy, your heart can be affected. So there was a time when I was having a lot of anxiety about that, when I was reading other people's stories, people having, strokes and heart attacks, some people actually needing, a heart replacement. I mean, it's a serious disease which can scare you. So that's why the anxiety is, at times, stopped me in my tracks.
So the muscular dystrophy, muscular part, is that, so what goes on with respect to your muscles, for those of us who don't know too much about it?
Yeah, they're just continually getting weaker. So, I honestly need a lot of help, because if there's something that's heavy, I can't carry it. So I feel bad sometimes because, if you ever shop at Costco, all that heavy bulk stuff that we have or that they sell. Every time me and my wife go there, we come back and she has to do all the heavy lifting. I try and help out, though we do have a little cart, which sometimes I can put things in and just pull something with wheels that can help me assist. But yeah, lifting is a big thing, and, bending over to pick something up. That's why I have these handy little pickup sticks, what I call, what is called actually a reacher grabber tool, which is something I can't live without. Just recently, the two I had broke. So that was really causing a lot of problems, because I use that to, organize the laundry, pick up something if I drop it. And so recently I did order actually 4 new pickup sticks or grabbers, just because you need to have them. Because what's funny is you'll drop one of those reaching tools and then you'll have to use another one to pick it up, because, it's just a real struggle. And the other thing is I can't climb stairs or go downstairs anymore. And, so that means my wife is stuck doing the laundry, which, I used to do and, didn't have a problem doing. But, sometimes I wish I could do more. But, the main risks, again, are falling. Like, even just taking the garbage out, something can happen. But, maybe 5 years ago, I went outside wearing my running shoes and didn't realize it was slippery out and slipped on some ice and fell to the ground. But I was still able to get up using something called the Gowers maneuver. But today that would be impossible. If I fall to the ground now, I'm stuck.
Well, again, part of what we want to do is to celebrate some of these organizations and businesses that make these different devices for accessibility, and maybe we'll leave a link in the notes about the grabbers that you're purchasing, because obviously you've done your research in terms of getting good ones that aren't going to break down and be an issue. So as you've aged with Becker muscular dystrophy, what have been some increased struggles that you've noticed since, I guess you had it when you were a teenager, right? 10 or something, you said
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, it's just the hardest thing is just losing the ability to do things you once could do with ease, Like, I used to be able to get in and out of a car. Now the cars are too low. I can't even get into them, can't even get out of them. So, in the last 3 or 4 years, we got an SUV, which really helps me, even though I still struggle, just because my legs have gotten so weak to the point where, it's hard for me to push off the ground sometimes, and my arms have gotten a lot weaker. Like, the first thing I noticed, though, was a major issue is getting up from chairs. Like, I used to love going to the restaurant, having a meal and not having to prepare it, just to be able to sit there and relax. But now the whole time when I'm, at a restaurant or even at a movie theater, the whole time I'm worrying about, okay, how am I going to get up? Now, I understand some people be like, well, why don't you use a wheelchair yet or anything? And that comes into the other thing about accessibility. Sometimes if you're using something like that, it's not accessible. It can make things difficult. There are people out there like me who would use mobility aids every once in a while. And, so there are part-time wheelchair users and stuff like that. So that's the problem these days, is just, dealing with inaccessibility and the issues of possibly falling. So that's a major issue for me right now, is just the risk of falling.
That concludes part 1 of our interview with Brad. Stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for listening.